This video is going to show you how to create an album in a page. So the first thing that we always have to do is we have to create a page to add that content section, which is the album, to that page. So we are in the pages section of the back end. We're going to click create new page and we're going to title it. And so let's say that we're just going to make this our home page. We're going to click create page. And we have the page created. Now we have to add content. So what we do is we click add new content block. Now when you get in here, you have all these different options. And the first option right here is album. So that's the one that I'm going to go over in this video. And so what we're going to do is we're just going to title this album 001. And we're going to choose the album content type. And then we're going to click create block. Now that album 001 is right here under this page. If I were to collapse this page, you can see that it goes away, and if I open it up, it's there. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to add images to that album, and I'm going to show you all the settings and all the options you have with the album content section. So we're going to come over here and we're going to click edit. And we're going to go ahead and start with this button right here, Add Media, because we have no images in here. So when we click Add Media, we're going to add files from our computer, and we're going to go ahead and just grab some of these files. So I'm just going to, these are already cropped and saved for web. They're ready to go. And I'm going to go ahead and just click Open. And you'll see that every image that's loading, if it has a checkbox, it loaded OK. And if it doesn't, then it didn't. So I'm going to click Done, and you'll now see all of the images in here. Notice that you have the sizes right next to the image. So you can see that, like I've cropped mine 1600 by 1060, 600 by 900, and so on. So we have all of our images in there, and then we're going to go ahead and start to manipulate how this album presents. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to Context. And in the context is where we're going to find things like title and description. So if we wanted to create an album section that has a heading like black and white photos, and then if we wanted to put a description, and then we could also change the background color. So I'll make this like a light gray. You could also click on this and just select a color. Or you can go ahead and just find the hex code from Photoshop and paste it right in there. We can add buttons, so I'm going to title this button 1, and I'll put the URL. Remember, when you put a URL, you have to type in http:// and then whatever the www is. And then if you're going to have a button that links somewhere, you're either going to link it in the same window or a new window. If you're linking in the same window, it means that it's part of the website. If you're linking away, then you're linking somewhere else. So if you're going to link to Google, or you're going to link to your Facebook page, you're going to link wherever, you want to open it in a new window. If it's inside the website, like another page within inside the website, it's the same window, so it doesn't spawn new browser windows. You have an alternative button just in case. So this is alternative link, and I'm going to type in HTTP here. I'll leave this as the same window. And then you can determine the button location. So we're going to leave it above the images right now. And I'm going to click Save. So we have some basic copy in there. Now we're going to go over to the album settings. And what you're going to notice is we have 3 different types of album settings. We have the grid, we have a masonry look, and we have a slideshow. So we're going to start with the grid. And right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what the page looks like. And then we're going to come back, we're going to change the settings. So I'm going to go back to this page list here, and I'm going to, because this is the home page, I'm going to click preview, and that's going to show me the page. So you can see I have my title here, I have my gray background, I have the text that I put in, the first button, and the alternative link. And if I roll over these images, you're going to see that it has the image name, and it has the rollover, which makes it a little bit transparent so you can see a little bit of the background color. And if I were to click on this, it opens up the light box and I can see the images, and I have arrows that allow me to roll through. So I'm going to close this out, and I'm going to go back and we're going to start messing around with some of these settings. So I'm going to go back into this album 001 by clicking Edit, and I'm going to go into the album settings. So we have this grid, which looks like this, and you can see that there's no space between any of the grids, any of the images. So everything's very tight next to each other. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change what we call the gutter width. It's the space between the image tiles. And if I turn this up to 25 and I click save and I refresh this page, you're going to see that we went from no gap between the images to gaps. So you can adjust what we call a gutter. And so it's kind of like on when you're bowling, it's the gutter on the side of the lane. So you can adjust the margins between. And then when we have that rollover, I can make it so that the rollover has a very high opacity or low opacity. So if I turn it all the way up to 100 and click save, you can see right now it was at like 70%. I'm going to refresh it. And when we roll over it, you can see that it 100% goes away. So you can see the background through. Some people like that look, some people don't like that look. So that's something that you can play with. So I'll turn this down to about 50%. And then we have, if you need to set the image aspect ratio, so if you're trying to make it perfect, you can set the image aspect ratio here. So if we were to set this 16 by 9, you have all these images falling in the 16 by 9 ratio. But I could very easily make this 16 by 16. And one of the reasons I might want to do that is when I have the vertical images, it takes the center of the photo. And you can see in this image, we have, her head chopped off. And so if I want to expand that, I can do 16 by 16 and click save. And when I refresh it, it's going to give you more of the image because it's going to give you a square. And you'll notice that everything's now coming in square. And so now we can actually see their head. So if you're using a lot of vertical images or a mixed match of horizontal and vertical, you can do that. You can even change this so that it's taller. So let's say it's 16 by 9, 9 by 16 this way. So it's 9 width, 16 high. I'm going to click save and I'm going to refresh. And you're going to see that all of my images are now taller. And again, it grabs the center of the image. So you're just going to have to decide how you want that to look. So now, when we're looking at this, we have 3 images across. So we have 3 columns. And if we want to change that, we could easily just turn this up to 6. We could turn it up to 10, whatever it is. I'm going to turn this up to, let's turn it up to 6. And if you're typing in here, just click off of there to set it. And then I'm going to click, while I'm in there, I'm also going to click hide the captions. So you'll notice that on rollover, we had all of these captions that say black and white. And it says the name of the image. If you want to hide those, you can hide those here by clicking this toggle switch. And then when I click save, we should have more columns. Right now we have 3 columns. And when I refresh it, we should have 6 columns across. So there are 6 columns. And you'll see that it just keeps loading as we go. And when I roll over, I don't get the name of the photo. So now, talking about the name of the photo, really quick, I want to go back to the image list. And you can see that we have the name of the photo here. And if I were to click edit, I can change the name of the photo, and I can even put in the image description. So if you're trying to SEO your site, this is a good place to do that. And then you would click save when you change that. Let's go back to the album settings. And now let's explore the second option that you have, which is the masonry look. So I'm going to change it to masonry, and I'm going to go ahead and click save. And then let's refresh this. And what you're going to notice is it goes into the masonry look, which is kind of that Tetris look. And so everything is tight together. Everything is Tetrised in. It doesn't really matter what size the image is. You're going to see the whole image, and it's going to fit right in there. So now let's look at the settings that we have. So in the masonry look, we have the tile width. So if I want there to be less images across, I'm going to turn this up, and let's say I turn this up to about 400. Now remember, every browser is going to be different, and this is responsive, so you're never going to have the exact layout maybe that you want, 3 across, 4 across, because every browser is different and it's going to respond differently. So I'm going to save this, and right now you can see that we have a whole bunch of images across. What we're doing now is we're making them wider. We're making the tile of the image, the tile width, wider. So when we refresh, you're going to see bigger images across. And then they're just going to tile in all the way down. So now what I want to do is I want to maybe add a gutter. We added a gutter to the grid, so maybe I want to add a gutter. Maybe I want a small gutter, maybe 10. And I want to hide the captions. So I'm going to click Save. I'm going to come in here, refresh this. And now you're going to see that it's got a small gutter in here. So you can control the gutter, and I got rid of the caption rollover. So let's go ahead and go back to the context, and I'm going to delete this text. I'm going to delete all these buttons because I want to show you something with the third option. I'm going to click Save. I'm deleting all those buttons. And so just really quick, just to show you this, I'm getting rid of all this stuff here. If you kind of want a neater, cleaner look, that's what it's going to look like. So you have this really neat, clean look in here. And so let's explore the third option. And the third option, we go over to album settings, and it's going to be a slideshow. So we have a lot of different options within the slideshow itself. So we're going to go ahead and save this, and we're just going to look at what it looks like as a slideshow. And so here is your basic slideshow. And what you're going to notice is if you have this at the top of the screen as your first content section in the page, so if you don't have anything above it, if this is your only content section that's at the top of the page, it can fall right under this navigation. There's a way that you can set it so your navigation is above, but this is kind of a cool look if you want to have images that slide through. So let's actually start by doing that. So let's turn this slideshow to autoplay, and I'm going to turn the time down to like 2 seconds just so that we can see the autoplay start right away. And I'm going to set this minimum width all the way up to 1600. So it's going to take up the width of the browser that we have here. I'm not going to add padding to the top and bottom, and I'm not going to show the thumbnails. So I'm going to go ahead and click Save, and I'm going to refresh it. Now, if you're using this effect at the top of the website, you see that it expands to the whole site, and you're going to see that that image has a gap, and this image has margins on the side. I would recommend that if you're going to do this, that you crop all of your images to be the exact same size. So make them all 1600 by 1200, or make them all whatever the exact size is, 1600 by 1086, whatever the image is, make them all the same so that it goes flush across and you don't have this kind of this mix and match. Like that one fills it up. That one's the same size as the one previous. That one is not. So that's my recommendation, but you can use this as a slideshow at the very top of the page. So now let's look at the other options that we have. So I can go ahead and I can turn this down to about 800, let's say, and I can add padding to the top and the bottom, and I can show the thumbnails in the control bar. I'm going to click Save, and I'm going to come in here and refresh it. And so now it's going to give us a little bit more of a traditional slideshow with thumbnails, right? So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back, and you can see that this thumbnail is the same ratio as the image. So if they're tall, if they're portrait, or if they're horizontal landscape, it's going to show that. But if I want to change the thumbnail size, if I set the width to 0, it's going to go ahead and go auto size, but I can also set this 100 by 100, click Save, and I can refresh, and it made it bigger. And if I come in here, I could also set the width, so to 0, click Save, and it turned it to 0. Turn this up to 100. Save it, refresh it. So I can play around with that size. I could also turn the thumbnails off. So turn those thumbnails off, click Save, refresh it, And now we just have like a very clean slideshow. I can turn the padding of the top on and off. And now it makes it flush with whatever's below it and whatever's above it. And then I can also come back into the context section, change it all to white, click save, and then this background color and will match the background color here. So it's not white on gray, it's white on white. You're also going to notice that whenever we have a grid, whenever we have a masonry look, and you click, it's going to open up the images into a lightbox. So when you have the slideshow, it doesn't open them up into the lightbox because the slideshow is already there. And when we have this slideshow, you can have it so that they can click through or they don't click through. But those are the basic options for all of the slideshow. So when we're talking about the grid or the masonry look and we have the lightbox, I changed this back to the grid look, and I want to go in here and I want to show you something. So we have this grid look, and when we click, we have this lightbox, and you notice the lightbox is dark. So if you want to change this to a light color, what you would do is you would come into the Design tab, and you have these themes where you have the pop-up album theme dark or light. And when you change it to light, it'll go ahead and change this to a lighter color. So let's go back and refresh. And let's click, and now you'll see that this is all light back there, all white. And then you have a couple of other options, which is the pop-up album background opacity. So we can turn this down and click save and refresh. And when we click this pop-up, you can see that the opacity is turned down so you can see the background. So you have a couple different options there. That's how you create an album content section. We're going to go through some of the other content sections in the other videos, but if you have any questions, don't hesitate to put in a support ticket, and we'd be happy to help out. Thanks so much for watching.